Hey, what's up? Welcome to Degen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts like the charts behind me, which are of semiconductor stocks and ETFs. I just wanted to go over a few things that do stand out to me as I have been talking about shorting the stock market and semiconductors since the start of 2024, and it does look like the top is in for both semiconductors and the market. And so, I just wanted to focus on semiconductors for this video because, I am currently shorting semiconductors. And so I wanted to, go over some specific ones as well as the ETFs just to give myself some insight. Hopefully this gives you some insight. But yeah, I am first going to start with Super Micro Computer Incorporated, which is ticker symbol SMCI. As you can see, SMCI is down more than 23% on the day, April 19th, closing the week on Friday at a price of $713.65, continuing down in the after hours. And so we actually opened up the day gapping down and breaking below a key level. And so for all of these semiconductor stocks and the ETFs, I'm going to go over basically the same Fibonacci retracement to highlight some levels that do stand out as potential levels that will either be acting as support or resistance. I do think for all of these, the price will be going down other than the one that is short. But yeah, so here looking at SMCI, the high was hit on March 8th at a price of $1,229, and price since then is down, let's see, more than 40%, and I do think price will continue lower, but it might also be finding support bouncing on the way down. So, things don't go in straight lines, and so in order to look at the levels, I'm just going to take a step back so we can see this Fibonacci retracement that I kind of arbitrarily drew going back to October 13th of 2022, which does coincide with the bottoms for AMD and NVDA before these massive run-ups. For SMCI, not exactly the bottom as it was, if I do take a step back. There are lows further back, but I just wanted to treat them all the same with that as really the start of this Fibonacci retracement. And so as we can see with SMCI, we are trading below the 382 at a price of right around $779. And so with that being said, if we cannot reclaim that level in the next couple days, I could see the stock price going down lower. And, while the next level on the list here is the 50% retracement, I actually see price going lower, as we can see here right between the 618 and the 65% retracement. That is the golden pocket, and that does seem to coincide with what was a little bull flag before a continuation up. That consolidation there, that does make me think that price could be returning to that level, finding that as support before potentially bouncing and starting to move up again. And so returning to that level would be getting to a price of ranging really between $462 to $501. So I could see price going there, which is going down more than $200 from current price. So I do think there is a lot of downside to go, but price might be bouncing at some levels, finding support on the way down, potentially getting to one of those levels, as we did see a low on February 20th of $692.50. Quite possible, as it did find support then, might be finding support around that level again, and that is just below current price. So I would look for maybe some consolidation around $690, $700. If we get some consolidation there, that could be a bear flag before a break and continuation lower to the 50% retracement right around $640. But like I said, I do think a bottom might be found right around $500, if not lower. And also, price could be going down to the 786, finding, these highs, approximate highs, this consolidation here as support. That would be getting to a price of right around $300. So, I do think there is a lot of downside for this one. but it might be bouncing in the near term, right around current price, just below it, consolidating, and then moving lower. So keep an eye out for that. And then the next one on the list that I have is Advanced Micro Devices, ticker symbol AMD. And so here I have drawn this based on the bottom. If we do look back in time, that was a nice bottom hit on October 13th, 2022. And so I do have the Fibonacci retracement drawn from there, going up to the high hit on what looks like March 8th at a price of $227.30. So from that retracement, just like SMCI, breaking below the 382 with AMD, also breaking below the 382, which was at a price of $161.32, closing on Friday, April 19th at a price of $146.64, being down on the day a little over 5%, almost 5.5%, continuing lower in the after hours, but not as dramatic of a day as SMCI. But I don't think it's that great that it did break below the 382 because there was some nice consolidation there. It did act as support before. I do think 160 right around there will be notable resistance in the future when price does turn around. But for the time being, it does look like it could be heading lower, like going to the 50% retracement right around $141, or the golden pocket, which would be a range from right around $115 to $121. We do have some peaks right around there. This consolidation here really ranging up to a price of like $130, going down to the 786 at a price of right around $91.50. So price could definitely be going down there, but it might be bouncing or maybe consolidating, forming a bear flag at the 50% level at $141. So do look for that. But I also did want to point out the previous high for AMD was right around a price of $164, and current price is below that. So we have broken below the previous all-time high. And so, I do think that there is further downside for AMD, unfortunately, but, if you're short, I do think that could be good. And then the next ticker on the list is NVIDIA, ticker symbol NVDA. And so I have covered this on the channel before. As you can see, I do have this yellow Fibonacci retracement here, really just focusing on some extensions, one being the 3618 at a price of $968.77. And that was actually a really good predictor for the all-time high, really just being a few dollars off the high that was hit on, I believe, March 8th, if they were all the same day. Yes, March 8th at a price of $974. So that 3618 was a great predictor of that level. And also, I do want to point out the 1618 at a price of right around $493. That does seem to coincide with the tops over here. So maybe NVIDIA will be finding support around that level, but it might also be going down to the golden pocket at a price ranging from $411 to $439, but it could also be finding support at the previous all-time high. Unlike AMD, with price already being below the previous all-time high, NVIDIA is still above it. And so that price was $345.95, marked by this yellow line here. That does also coincide with this massive gap that was left in the chart. So I could definitely see NVIDIA pulling back to that level in the longer term. So that does represent a lot of downside for the stock. Filling that gap will be coming down to a price of right around $318. So, this is talking about a more than 50% drop in the stock price. And so that does represent a lot of gains to the upside if you're shorting it or shorting semiconductors. But before I do look at the semiconductor ETFs, I did want to point out this gap that we have most recently formed, and that is based on right around when there were earnings for NVIDIA. There was this nice gap up. The high hit on February 21st, which was earnings day. The high on that day was $688.88, but really the close of that day was at a price of $674.69. So that would be a more proper gap fill. So I could see price dropping from $762, which was the close for Friday, April 19th, being down exactly 10% on the day. So I could see price dropping further down to $675, right around there. And that does represent a continuation, a further downside of right around, more than 10%, about 11.5% to the downside. Maybe we get a bounce there or some consolidation, but that consolidation would, of course, be bearish following a down move. And so I could see this breaking lower. And like I said, I do see this gap below the previous all-time high. And so I do think that there is a lot of downside for NVIDIA and semiconductors in general. And speaking of semiconductors in general, I am now going to switch over to the SMH, which is the Van Eck Semiconductor ETF. And so here I do have the same retracement going from the low hit on October 13th of 2022, going up to the high here, hit on March 8th. All of these semiconductor stocks hit their highs on March 8th, and that is at a price of $239.14. And from the high, it looks like price has gone down about, 17% from that all-time high, closing the week on Friday, April 19th at a price of $199.21, being down just over 4.5% on the day and breaking below the 236 at a price of $202.07. Closing the week below $200, I do think that is significant, and I do think price could be going lower. It does look like the 382 might be acting as support if we do continue lower, and that does coincide with this approximate high here hit at the end of 2023, being at a price of right around $179. But I do find the 50% retracement to be a little more convincing. Got this double top here, consolidation below it, and that did act as some consolidation again here before a continuation higher, and effectively testing that level as support here before moving higher. And so the 50% level is right around a price of $161. But then again, of course, the golden pocket, that is at a range between $137 to $142. That, having acted as support during this consolidation here, might be acting as support again. But it could, of course, be breaking lower. But, I do think that with the previous all-time highs here, right around $156, that does seem to coincide with this consolidation here. And the 50% retracement, I could see price returning to really anywhere between $137 to $160. Finding support in that region, maybe that would be serving as a bottom before continuation higher. But if it does pull back to the 50% level and consolidate, that could be a bear flag following the downward moves, just like we saw continuation to the upside here following this consolidation. After this upside move, that was a bull flag. Coming down here, consolidating, that would be a bear flag. So I do definitely think the SMH could be going lower. And then the other semiconductor ETF, which I have not really focused on this channel, is the iShares Semiconductor ETF, ticker symbol SOXX. And here we can see also the low hit on October 13th, going up to the high here, hit on March 8th, closing on Friday, April 19th, at a price of $198.39, being down just under 4% on the day. but closing below the 236 here at a price of $205.53. So with this, I do think it could be going lower, and I do think it could be finding support. Actually, let's look here. The previous all-time highs were right around the 382. That is at a price of $184.35. Could be finding support there. Also, with the all-time highs here and this high here, that would be right around $175. Maybe finding support there, as it did act as support right here around the beginning of the year. But let's look at that golden pocket. That is at a price ranging from $145 to $150. Did act as support over here, so that might very well be acting as support again. But if there is a bounce there, that could be the start of the right shoulder formation, with this being the head, the left shoulder here. So if there is a bounce there, that could actually be the start of a bearish pattern that could send the price a lot lower, potentially to these lows right around $95. But the 786 is at right around $126, did have some consolidation here. So maybe that would be acting as a floor for this one. But, the thing that I'm most interested about for this video is ticker symbol SOXS. This is 3x leverage short semiconductors. And so going back in time to that low for semiconductors, that corresponds with a high hit on October 13th of 2022 for SOXS, and that was at a price of $843.13. And so I have taken a Fibonacci retracement from that level to the most recent low of $27.28. And so from that retracement, we can get some bigger picture timescale pricing on where I think SOXS could be going. But really, since this is leveraged, I don't necessarily think this is going to go up to $800 or $500. But I do think that if it is to be following what the semiconductors are doing, it might actually bump into some resistance around these lows, which would be right around $300 a share. And that could be corresponding with the 382 retracement here at a price of $338.93. But it may also just get to the 236 at a price of $219.82. Where we do have this consolidation here. But really, I think if price does get up to that level, that would more likely be acting as support, because we do have these tops here, prior resistance becomes support. And so with that being said, I do think that this support here, right around $159, we had this bottom here, I do think that prior support might be acting as resistance in the future, so I could see price going up there. And since I'm really thinking about SOXS on a shorter time frame, I'm not expecting it to be going all the way up here. I'm going to actually zoom in to look at this yellow retracement, which is based on the high hit at the end of October 2023, corresponding with lows for semiconductors and the semiconductor ETFs, as well as the stock market, the NASDAQ, S&P 500, there were lows then before the recent rally that we've seen. And so those lows correspond with the high here in SOXS at a price of $141.04, retracing down to the recent low of $27.28. We have some levels here that I think realistically price could be going to within the next year, within the next 6 months potentially. And considering, the previous lows that we saw over here, they were right around $80 here. That does correspond with what looks like was some support here on the way down, some consolidation before that move. So I could definitely see price returning to the 50% retracement right around $84.16 So really a range between $80 to $84. And yeah, so with price closing on Friday, April 19th at $46.13, being up almost 12% on the day, I could see price pulling back to right around $43, maybe $40, that being a round number, before continuing higher. And I do think that, like we saw, the 236 here at $54, that acted as support. Then resistance over here, I do think that might be acting as resistance yet again. So maybe there will be some consolidation in the range from, let's say, $40 up to $54, maybe getting some consolidation, a bull flag before a test and break above 54 to then reclaim that as support. And then the 382 is right around a price of $71, corresponding with this high here. That, having acted as resistance before, might be acting as resistance again. Maybe get some consolidation between the 236 and the 382 before breaking above it to then reclaim or test the 50% retracement at $84. Like I said, we did have some consolidation in that range from $77 to $84. So that might be acting as resistance. And, it is quite possible that we do get price going up to that golden pocket, and that would be right around $100 a share, more than 100% upside from current price. So, I think that this is looking pretty good. It does look like, while I started building my position, let's see, at the end of January, I bought my first share of this on December 29th. So, there was some downside, but I'm currently in the green in my position. It's actually kind of small because of this reverse split, and I did sell a covered call that will be expiring the end of May. Current price is above that strike price, so it's possible I'll be letting go of those shares at a lower price than I could had I just held them, but I am still holding some shares on the side, and I am looking forward to buying pullbacks in the SOXS whenever they are occurring, because I think that there's a lot of downside, as I have gone over with semiconductors, whether that's the specific tickers or the ETFs more broadly looking at the semiconductor sector. There's a lot of downside there, and with that, I think that there's a lot of upside with SOXS. But, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks a lot for watching.